Hey, George.
Hello, hello, hello.
Wow, it's been a little while since our last session.
Yeah,
We're starting a new series today.
a new series,
Yeah.
a brand new series.
Yeah, tell us about it. This was your vision.
Well, yeah,
Sort of.
I mean, it came actually from a series of messages that you preached
Yeah.
a little while back.
That's right.
You called it The Road Less Traveled.
The road less traveled, yeah.
And it just kind of spurred my imagination on
Yeah.
and started thinking about that and what could a series be that takes that question seriously
Yeah.
as you have done
Yeah.
in the church, although it's not inspired by the sermons that you preach because they are more specific to
Right.
a particular
This is
church.
this is a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is related to this road
Yeah.
that not many people go on because it's not an easy road.
Yeah.
It's the road that Jesus traveled.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
of course, probably all of you guys have heard the phrase before. It's not necessarily commonly used, this road less traveled as a phrase, but there is a popular book by Scott Peck. And
Yeah.
before
Robert Frost.
Yeah, you reminded me that there was I think a poem first
Correct.
by Robert Frost.
That's right.
Do you know the year roughly? I can't remember. Was it?
Previous century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Probably at least 100 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you guys can look that up on your own to see when the poem was.
He comes to a
penned.
fork on the road and he looks this way and this way, and he chose to go the road that is less
traveled, yeah.
That's the gist of the
Yeah.
poem, but it's also the gist of life.
Yeah, that's right. And Jesus talks about it. But before we go there, George, I wanted to ask you what comes to mind,
Yeah.
like just on the comes to your mind first, and not counting maybe a Bible verse.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get to that.
It's not a Bible verse, but it's related to the biblical world.
Okay.
In a long time ago,
A few years ago.
I left Lebanon in 1969, went back in 1974 for a visit, and then in 1999 for a visit. And in 1999, I went to an area of Lebanon where there were some Roman ruins still left. I mean, the place is still like you would have experienced it way back in the day, kind of thing. And the place is called Byblos, which is along the coast of Lebanon. The coast of Lebanon, the coast of Israel, it's the same Mediterranean coast. The two countries are exactly the same
Okay.
in topography,
Yeah.
in climate, in all of that kind of thing that you compare countries with. And I remember very distinctly. Now, I don't know if Jesus was ever in Byblos, but
Okay.
he wasn't very far.
Okay.
To imagine that him having traveled that path, it just became some kind of a spiritual experience for me. And that I was walking on these Roman ruins, and there were pebbles and rocks underneath. It wasn't paved, it wasn't manufactured in any way.
Yeah.
And I remember, I just wonder if Jesus ever stepped on these same pebbles,
Yeah.
same rocks,
Nice.
same road that I've traveled upon to come up to this hill where this Roman ruin still is there.
Wow.
Now, there are people who have gone to Israel and have walked the same path
Yeah.
that Jesus walked, assumably.
Yep.
You have the Via Dolorosa, you have the
Right.
way of the Stations of the Cross.
Right.
That's the Via Dolorosa. And lots of people go on those paths just trying to remember, to reconnect their own story of their own life with this pathway that they are
Yeah.
taking. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Just the path, the word path, pathway, road. We can really imagine a lot of different experiences and images with that language. I mean, we know the scriptures, especially the Old Testament, as we're going to see it's in the New as well. I remember growing up in Tennessee in the Appalachian Mountains, and there was a path, I think it's part of the Appalachian Trail, that has a river. If my memory's right, it's called the Watauga River that runs through there, which the word Watauga means beautiful river, I think, in Cherokee. If any of you out there are listening to Cherokee, let me know. I know it's a native term. I'm not sure if I've gotten the tribal identity correct, but me and some of my friends developed about an annual practice of taking the path, but doing it, we just called it rock jumping. So the path we took was in the river.
Oh.
But we would try to
jump from one rock to the other.
As much as possible. And some of it was fairly benign, not, maybe the water was running fairly shallow, but some places it was white water and running deep and fast. But it was familiar enough that you were able to negotiate it over time fairly easily. Yeah, we got to know it.
Yeah.
And it was I don't know, it would take us a couple hours to do it. And I don't think we were thinking about it as lads, as a spiritual experience. Mm-hmm. But looking back, it had so much challenge in it.
Yeah.
That I think that it did. If I did it today, I would probably say, yeah, that's a spiritual experience.
Yeah. We also love predictable pathways.
We do, yeah.
Going on the same road every day.
Yeah.
And contemplating life and whatever. Sometimes I take a walk in the neighborhood, and I don't like to vary the pathway.
Is that right?
I just like to go in the same way every time that I go and come back.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much that you miss on the pathway because it is familiar, it becomes familiar.
Yeah.
Then when you begin to engage it intentionally, you begin to see things you never saw before.
Yeah.
I also remember growing up in Lebanon, I used to walk to work every day.
Is that right?
It was a half an hour walk.
Yeah.
And I would take the same way there, the same way back every day. I did that for 5 years. And there's a comfort in knowing the path, in the path being familiar, and knowing I can get there if I go this way. But sometimes there are shortcuts.
Yeah.
There are other ways to get on the path.
Yeah.
But with them comes some uncertainty, some fear, maybe.
Unknown.
Paths can be dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. I remember our family doing a hike in New Mexico. This has been 20 years ago, and we were on a well-marked path, and then for whatever reason, we came to a area that kind of dumped into a meadow. The path kind of the path kind of disappeared. We were just in tall grass. We didn't think anything of it because it was a very playful time. We were just running around in the meadow, enjoying it. It was really beautiful. But then after we did that for a half hour, and we could not find the path.
Yeah.
We just couldn't find it. We couldn't find any path.
Yeah.
And that was, I remember the feeling of uncertainty that accompanied that.
Yeah.
And so you're right, we do live in familiar paths.
Yeah, we like predictable ways of getting there.
Yeah.
We know it's not changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is, as apprentices of Jesus, on the one hand, it's the safest way to live our lives, but on the other hand, we don't always experience it.
Yeah. You know what happens when you take a wagon, for example, and go on the same road all the way
Right.
and back?
It goes,
back and forth,
Yeah.
back and what do you create?
yeah, there's ruts.
So you create ruts
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And sometimes those ruts become too deep, and you can get stuck in a rut.
Yeah, you can. You
We have
can.
those
Yes.
expressions. That,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
So that let's jump into what Jesus says in the sermon here
Yeah.
in Matthew 7 in his sermon on what we have come to call the Sermon on the Mount.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Enter the narrow gate." That's how he starts, and then this is chapter 7 of Matthew, verses. Well, you've got it there, George. You wanna
13
read
and
it?
14.
13 and 14.
Yeah.
Will you read those for us?
He says, "Enter through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide, and the way is spacious that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter through it. How narrow is the gate, and difficult the way that leads to life, and there are few who find it."
It's a challenging text.
It's challenging, yeah.
And this comes at the end, near the end of this sermon. So he's been inviting people into the kingdom and then characterizing, just doing a quick summary here, illustrating what life in the kingdom is and what it looks like. And then he gives this sort of warning.
Do you think Jesus was being like autobiographical here in some way?
I don't know that I've ever thought about it that way, George.
I mean, at some point,
Say more.
At some point, he says, "I am the way,
He does, yeah,
the truth, and the life."
yeah.
At some point, he says, "I am the gate."
He does,
Right,
yeah, that's
right.
right.
So maybe this is putting it together in this one sermon.
Yeah,
I am the gate. I am the way. I am the road that leads to life.
to life, yeah,
And that's a road less traveled.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now you might think, well, of course we are believers, and that's not really talking to us. It is talking to those who are outside the way. But Jesus was talking to believers,
Yeah,
believers in God, people who are religious, people who had created sacred paths
right.
to God,
Yeah,
and he is challenging their way of thinking about true paths, about narrow gates,
yeah.
and roads that lead to life.
Yeah, so is your point there, are you giving a word of caution to us? Let's not interpret this as the wide road is the world
Yeah,
and the narrow gate is the
the way of the church.
way of the
or
church.
the way of,
And of course, that would be a legitimate way to also think about it. But contextually, as you've just pointed out, that is not what Jesus is doing.
No,
here.
he's not trying to say this is the Roman way and this is the Jewish way.
Yeah,
No, I think he's saying within the Jewish tradition of his day, Jesus saw wide paths that have led many to destruction,
yeah,
right? And narrow paths
yeah,
that lead to life.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because I think as we walk on this road of apprenticing to Jesus, being his disciples, this hits home. If we're going to walk the road he's walking, if we're going to learn the way of imitating,
Yeah.
living in his life, then this is going to be our path.
The danger is, Jim, to think, since I'm in, I must be traveling the right path.
Yeah,
And in a sense, there's some truth to
Sure.
that. You are traveling the right path, but is this the best path that you can travel within this whole area of the Christian faith? Is this the path of abundant living?
yeah,
Is this the path of humility? Is this the path of generosity? is this the path that Jesus traveled and showed us by his own character what kind of a path it is.
Yeah.
That's why we're calling it the road less
traveled. Yeah. And there's another teaching of Christ, George, that you've by the way, I'll give a plug here now. George has been writing a workbook out of this, what we're doing now, that we'll make available. We'll say more about it later. But one of the things that you decided is that let's anchor this series not as much on the Matthew 7, 13, and 14. That's more the inspiration for it. But on another teaching Jesus gives, that we've probably referenced this before, but it's in Matthew 11.
Yes.
And we think we want to spend just a few minutes with this text because we think this teaching is an invitation to this path, to this road less traveled. So let's read that one. You got it? Do you want me to? I can do it if you want me to.
Either one of us could do it. Why don't you do it?
Okay. So this is Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. Also a text that many of you are possibly very familiar with. We'll talk about the context in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to read it. Matthew 11, 28 to 30. Jesus says this, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light."
Yeah.
What's the context?
I picture these brief verses here as Jesus on the way, and he's inviting people to come on the way with him. The idea of come yoke yourself with me and let's plow this life together. Let's plow this path together.
Yoke being,
correct.
a plowing agricultural implement.
That's right. And what you do is you plow a path and then you sow your seeds and you've got things growing. But before that, you've got John the Baptist, who had just got arrested. He's in jail.
Okay.
And
this is in Matthew 11.
Matthew 11, and John is wondering, what have I given my life to? What has this way of doing life gotten me? And
locked up.
Locked up in jail. And so he sends word to ask Jesus, what's going on? Are you the Messiah? And all of that.
Have I got this right or not?
Yeah. Have I traveled the right path?
Yeah.
In essence.
Yeah.
What has my life been about? Am I going to rot here for nothing? What is this? And John had preached in places, and the repentance that he was expecting was not as big. Some people rejected. The religious leaders especially rejected what he had to offer, what he had to say. And on the heel of that context, Jesus is now telling his disciples and the people of the world, inviting them. John is pointed to the right place. John is right. This moment of inquiry by John is right. It's not the wrong way to make an inquiry about this path that I'm leading.
Yeah, that's right. He needs to know.
And then he takes the opportunity to invite people into this path. Because the yoke that religion had put on the people had not taken them down the right path. It was taking them down the road of legalism. It was taking them down the road of the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees that Jesus criticizes in the Sermon on the Mount.
A lot of religion.
A lot of rules and regulations, what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
It was that kind of a based religion. And Jim, I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people say this to me. I was brought up in a religion of do's and don'ts. Like this was a way that many, many people have been formed, and there is no freedom. And for a person that's brought up in this legalistic kind of a way, it's so hard to shake that.
Yeah.
At some point, they come up against the wall of I can't continue this way, and I really don't know how to go to the other side of the wall.
Yes.
You don't jump the wall; you have to go through it, and
Yeah.
and you need guidance to guide you through that, and
That's
you need
right.
community around you to guide you through that.
Yeah.
And but a lot of people are stuck in this old religious way of doing life with God that is based on do's and don'ts, and based on obligations and duties, and it's not satisfying. It's not satisfying at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when this particular text really came alive for me, later in my life, really, more in midlife, and it was from Dallas Willard's teaching from it. I remember him talking about this text, and he described it not very different than what you just did. And for me, I experienced it as a true invitation. In fact, probably as much as any scripture, this one invited me to actually become a disciple, to become to learn from Jesus.
Yeah.
That's the invitation. Learn from me.
I actually see and picture Jesus sighing with deep, deep grief in his heart at what he was seeing.
Yeah.
And his invitation to come to me, it's like, I beg you to come to me, because this way is not going to do it.
Yeah.
The way of life is this way.
Yeah.
Yoke yourself to me.
Yeah.
So, he's not quite crying, but he's so longing for people to experience
Yeah, you hear it.
a way of life
Yeah.
that is so different.
Yeah, you hear it in his voice because he's inviting you who are weary and burdened.
Yeah.
You can't measure up. You can't. You continue to fail the legalistic code, and you're just worn out from religion.
Yeah.
You've been loyal to your denomination. You've believed the orthodoxy of it, but it's not brought you life.
Correct. Correct.
And Jesus is inviting them to life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not hard to see if you listen to any news media, even our own, like Lifeway and Barna and all those researchers that are doing studies on what's happening within Christianity and to our young people, and how they are leaving in droves
Right.
our churches, is because the path that we have taken has not been as inviting as the path of Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not to accuse. I am that. I am the one that has
Yeah.
that has alienated some
Yeah.
people from the church.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know if this is the best time, but I'm going to ask anyway. You gave me a great G.K. Chesterton quote earlier today, and I'm probably getting ahead to our next episode, but no matter.
Yeah.
I opened a can of worms here. So can you tell that story? Because when you just talked about we are the problem, we want to make a point from that.
And one of the big problems is that we have become so proud of being the church and being the saviors of America.
Yeah.
And in some sense, the church is the instrument that God is using to bring people to Him. Right. He's not limited to that, but with that has come the pitfall of becoming proud.
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes we don't see that.
Yeah.
We don't see our pride. With G.K. Chesterton, that was 1910.
And
way
this
back
is kind of urban myth, right? We're not 100% sure it was
Yeah.
him who said
Most
it.
people attribute it to him, and it's the kind of thing that he would say.
Yeah.
The story goes like this. In 1910, the London Times, I think, put a question out there when they used to do those kinds of things. The question, we're going to ask a question, write an essay, and write back the response, and we will publish your response as a gift, as a reward. And the question was, answer the question, what is wrong with the world? And of course, lots of people wrote long essays and all kinds of arguments and rationales. But there was one person who wrote in, and people say this is G.K. Chesterton, who wrote things like orthodoxy and
Brilliant.
Brilliant writer.
He's above our pay grade. We both tried to read him, and
But lots of people quote him, and so we know him from many quotes.
Yeah.
And we know him from this story.
C.S. Lewis loved him.
Yeah. And he wrote back. He's one of the ones that wrote back, and he was awarded the publication of his essay. He says, "Dear sirs, the answer to your question is, I am. What's wrong with the world? I am."
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where pride that the scribes and the Pharisees felt and thought that they had the only way.
Yeah.
They had the only way. This is within the context of religion that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the pagan world and the religious world, but within the context of people of faith, they thought that their way was the only way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They had that much pride to say that, and they wouldn't be able to see any other way.
Yeah.
So Jesus comes and says, there is another way.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way that is less travel, and I'm offering that way to you.
To you.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's what we're going to explore in this series.
What does that way look like?
What does it look like?
What were some of the roads that Jesus traveled that we hesitate to travel, or we're afraid to travel, or we don't know about that we could travel?
Yeah. Or we're resistant.
Yes.
Yeah. We just don't want it.
Yeah.
If we're honest. So that's what we're going to explore together. We'll speak out of our own lives as well as the scriptures, and we invite everyone to give our own energy to this question.
Yeah.
Because
And there may be a lot of our listeners who are stuck on a path that is not taking them to life.
Right.
That is not opening life to them, the life of freedom.
Right.
A life of experiencing the presence of God.
Yeah. Joy and gratitude.
A life where their souls are nurtured and nourished just by being with God.
Yeah.
A life with God.
Yeah.
And this would be very helpful to those who are not on that path, and for those who are on the path, this would be good knowledge and practices that we will be offering for them to solidify that walk.
That's right.
That travel.
Well, we're going to get invited to it again. We want to be quick to say we've been walking on this path, and at the same time, we feel it's so new to us sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So
the good thing about this series, again, Jim, like what we do with every series, is we're going to stick with Jesus and see the road that he traveled.
That's right. That's right.
And take our cues from him.
That's right.
Because we imitate him.
We imitate him.
Yeah.
Okay. We look forward to, we hope we've piqued your interest and you're ready to jump in there with us. So we'll see you again soon.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Soul Renovate podcast. Any of the scriptures or resources that we mentioned in this episode will be linked in our show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app, because it really helps us to share these conversations with more Christian leaders like you. And if you have any questions you'd like Jim and George to answer, you can email us at info@soulrenovate.us. Soul Renovate is a ministry of Christ First Counseling Center, and it exists to propel Christian leaders to abide in Christ and grow in His likeness. Soul Renovate is made possible by the generous support of people like you. If you'd like to support us, you can do that on our website, soulrenovate.us. And if you'd like to learn more about Soul Renovate, you can also do that on our website, soulrenovate.us. This podcast is produced by me, Dalton Huey. Our cover art was designed by Hannah Huey, and our music is by The Fox's Forest. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.